What's up everybody, Ken here. Today we're gonna do something a little bit different in terms of game wise. Today we'll be doing a Garry's mod basic tutorial upon how to pose and how basically to handle your first ever poses and so on, cause I mean I started, so you're gonna start probably as well. You're gonna be seeing this video, so let's just jump right into it. We got our student right here. Yeah, you. Yes, you. I heard that you made an artwork. You want to show it to the lovely people? Lovely. Let's go right for it. That's not really an artwork, is it? Would you think it's good? Well then, shall we clean it up first? Come on. Alright, let's clean it up. Well now, isn't that better? What do you think about it? Did you actually like the artwork? Well, too bad. Today, we're gonna be showing you, everybody, how to do proper artwork, whether it be within the enhanced models regarding to Half-Life 2, or whether it be within the basic Half-Life 2 models. Every single step will be basically provided slowly, so you have enough time to basically take note and to take your time with it. So let's go over to the scene again. Looks empty, isn't it? Oh, where are your models? Yeah, well, I placed them aside as we were cleaning up. And here they are. Right then, so shall we basically start off slowly for everybody? And off we go. Straight up to the point. As we did already take quite a long time. So, first of all, well, most of you are basically already, most of you are probably already rather confused when it comes to what's supposed and like how to do it, how to basically start. My recommendation, start slowly, start in a dark room. A dark room is always the way to go. Put up your own scene. This currently is just an example scene that we have put up for no other purpose than to basically learn. Right. The console command that we're talking about is mat full bright 1. That will make everything full bright. You won't have any lights, nothing will affect it. No matter how close this light is to the prop, nothing will happen. Right? And you just have the maximum amount of visibility. You don't need no more. Mat full bright, and you have the answer for basically all your questions. Question number 2, how to start the pose. Simple. First of all, make sure you have arranged enough space and you have made out a point, or basically made out an idea upon what you want to pose. So for this instance, we want to pose 3 models. Nothing too special, nothing too fancy. So let's start off simply by first of all getting rid of these face expressions, as they are rather irritating. We remove the face expressions and everything is basically up to standard. Now next up, we want to basically put them at our target. So whether it be this guy sitting, nothing too fancy, this guy sitting, and this guy, the other guy, is also just sitting over here, right? To basically learn how to make a differentiation between the models that we're talking about. Nothing has been posed yet, that's just in the way. Nothing has been posed yet. So, let's start up with the most important thing, camera position. Before you start, you want to head for your camera tool and place the camera in the position where you can see everything that you will basically pose. But currently, everything over here is entirely unnecessary. Put up a camera, and there you go, you have placed the camera. Make sure, however, that the camera key is set to the key that you want to select. Whether it be, for example, my numpad 1 button, or whether it be for you, if you want to select it, your number 9 button, or whatever. You can select any button you want to select. I go for my typical one, which is numpad 1. and we start off posing. Very simple, nothing too tricky, very easy. When it comes to the basic advancements, so to say, I'll get to that a bit later. First of all, I always recommend that you start off with the pelvis. The pelvis is considered as the tummy and the lower area of the legs, in between these two areas. No furthermore, nothing more. And there we go, we already have our first guy basically sitting. Not too special, not too hard, very easy to basically comprehend along with it. Well, let's say you want to post this leg on this table or the other leg on the table. Well, you can either use the fist gun in order to do so, which is a little bit of a more fuzzier way to proceed it, or obviously use the fist gun, and then you go over to your tool gun and go over to your posing. I will leave a link down in the description for the Ragdoll Mover. The Ragdoll Mover is very easy to understand. The Ragdoll Mover essentially gives you the ability to rotate the axis points of any bones that a prop or Ragdoll has into another different position. So what you can't achieve with the fist gun, you can achieve with the Ragdoll Mover. Well, let's say we want to shove the knee of the guy into the face. Within the fist gun, you have the limitation of this. Within the Ragdoll Mover, you can exceed it to a furthermore step point. About the IK chains, I will get to that later. So now we can just post the leg the way we want. When it comes to the gizmo is not too much of a particular thing to basically talk about. IK chain. The IK chain can be used to basically disable or enable temporary bones of the models. So per se, you want to disable the hands and you want to move the ragdoll. If you disable the hands will be in the previous position as they are right now. Meanwhile, the leg's position will be changed. If you select the right leg and the left leg, IK, or deselect it, and you tick on the hands, and the obviously is gonna happen, or the obvious is gonna happen, and the legs will move around the way you basically want them to be. If you don't want, or if you per se have a model already posed, but you don't like the position of it, you can disable basically all the IK chains and move the model to the other side of the couch, for example. This can also go throughout walls and props. That one doesn't matter at all. You can exceed it to the outer side of the map if you want. However, you need to understand that the pelvis is never in a straight position, so he will go up or down. Put them into the previous position. What you can also do with this tool, in case if anything is floating like this, you can just realign it very simply, nothing too hard, and there you go. Let's enable all of our IKs. This one I always can recommend to basically tick off. What it does is essentially upon unfreezing, everything basically doesn't make any sense, aka will just get revoked. Everything will just get revoked the way you want it to have. So if you raise the hand, it will just fall down, regardless of how long you basically took for it or not. The same applies for the leg. So my recommendation, tick it off, and then you can simply just have the leg being entirely frozen. However, you need to keep in mind whenever you use the Ragdoll Mover, even if you just basically point it at a hand, the entire ragdoll will be frozen. This including, for this kind of a case, for all 17 bones. Now we go back to our model that we have posed previously and use the fist gun to start off easily. You grab the hand, you put it aside if you don't need it. What you can do, and well, I mean not really what you can do, but in most of the cases it is a very good variant or method to get around a little bit of a problem. Like for example, you want to pose the leg and the hand is in the way, you have to move it away, you move the leg and then either A, you forget what you want to do, or something else basically breaks up how you don't want it to be. So let's say we want to pose this leg on the table, aka the foot. So we just do it, we use the Ragdoll Mover as shown previously, and you just align it very simply, casually. Bit of rotation, and there you go. Now obviously every pose can be to its own reference or preference, not reference. Either it can be in this kind of a position, or you obviously just increase the angle, raise the leg. Now, obviously every character is doing what he wants to do, or has an individual pose of what he wants to do. So, let's spawn in a prop. Very straightforward, nothing to be considered about. We go to the Counter-Strike folder in this kind of case, and you spawn in the projector remote. This one, I forgot to freeze the camera. The projector remote can be also used as a remote control. Once using the remote control, you can just give it, once spawning the remote control, you can just basically give it inside of somebody's hand in order to act that he is currently watching TV. Or you put it on the side if you want. Now as shown before, if you have this kind of a situation where you can't increase the axis of the hand, as we basically see right here, as he basically refuses, use the Ragdoll Mover. Put the hand in the position that you want it to be. Rotate the hand axis and put it into the proper position so that basically looks somewhat realistic. Now you grab the remote control, you disable the collisions. You have two ways of disabling the collision. Once, by pressing your C button in order to access the context menu, and right click on a certain prop and disable the collisions. The other way is by going over to the No Collide tool. Right click makes the prop collide through everything. Left click makes the prop collide only through particular props that you select, as shown here. Pressing a reload button will basically reset all the functionalities, unlike here. Let's give this very fellow a remote control. A remote control, by the way, can be also given inside of a hand with a bit more precision even, using the Ragdoll Mover. So we select the Ragdoll Mover and put it into the right hand position. As a side note, obviously the remote control or any other given props that you may try to give into somebody's hand may collide within his body or his hand. However, if it ain't within the camera range, it is nothing to be necessarily concerned about. So, even if basically it would be a bit more in-depth hand, you wouldn't be able to see it from the current camera's position. Next step, you want to fix up the other foot. The other foot obviously cannot necessarily be seen within the camera scene. However, if you raise the foot, you can have a better window of seeing the other leg as well. Just like seen here. Now this method obviously can be also used together with other kind of methods. So let's say you want to have the leg a little bit more higher up. What you can simply do is either A, you put up a prop that can be seen on the scene and put it right next to the leg. Obviously, in this kind of a case, I made a pretty poor prop choice. However, you can use a bucket, you can use other small props in order to comprehend the amount that you have to raise the leg. This is about bucket size. Now we put the chair away, put everything back into the previous position. We can still raise the leg as it isn't too necessary here in this case. And we go in for the other hand. So we unfreeze the other hand 3 bones, or the other arm's 3 bones. And we just put it on the leg. Very simple, or on the knee. Now again, as for the Ragdoll Mover can be used even within, it's like a bone within another bone of the same ragdoll. That is entirely unnecessary, basically. Like, it doesn't depend on anything. You can just put basically all the bones inside of the tummy and or the spine. Let's do that right away. I can't select this, that is very unfortunate. And there we go. If you have come this far, you already have made your first pose. Now, we take out the Ragdoll Mover, make the last fine adjustments. For this instance, you can see that the remote control is even floating on its own without being held. As for the second character, it's time to pose him. So, same procedure as before. take the pelvis, you freeze the pelvis. The pelvis is the main core, so to say, of a model, as it can control all the IK foots and the IK bones, and basically moves the entire model if everything is unselected, as shown before. Now let's give this individual something to drink. A simple bottle from Counter-Strike Source. Never forget that posing does take its time. So if you're in a rush, my high recommendation is delay the pose for later and take time when you actually have time. Alright, let's spawn in a bottle from Counter-Strike Source. We spawn in a water bottle. Let's put it on a person's lap. Make it no collided for the proper positioning. Obviously, you select the hand together with its bones, and you make him hold it. If the case applies of you not comprehending properly enough within your fizz gun, my recommendation is to use the Ragdoll Mover. That just absolutely guarantees the positioning of a hand. As for the last part of this very individual, you want to pose, obviously, the other hand, and maybe consider adjustments for the legs. Let's start with the hand by unfreezing it and give it basically the right position to be acceptable within the pose. Now we go to the legs. As you can see, the legs are not really in a so to say proper position. Obviously, you can always control a leg by its lower component. Same applies for the arm. With a hand, you can do with the leg and the foot. In this case, you cannot see the foot of the person. However, it just looks better if you basically put it into the right position. Now to the final touch of these two individuals. Let's say they're having a chat while they're watching TV. A very natural thing that people do. So we go back to our two individuals at the same time. We adjust them a little bit. And then we have the proper positions for both of them being able to talk within one another. Now obviously, the fingers on a pose, the faces on a pose, there is no eye posing. This we will get to now. As him, we will just disregard. Let's start off with him. Individual 2. I just name him like that now. Obviously, he doesn't want to look here as he's talking to him. Let's make his eye being posed to this very position. If you want to realign the eyes, My recommendation to make it better looking, don't never ever use this kind of a tool, else the eyeballs will just vanish, or the pupils, and you will have a very weird looking individual looking at another one. Let's use the Ragdoll Mover to comprehend. Straightforward, easy to understand. Now let's finish up the eyes. Now obviously the guy with the remote control wants to watch what he wants to watch, so he's not as much focused on a person than the person just talking to him. Fix up the eyes, make it look about here. Final adjustments can always be made in terms of re-angling the head, re-angling the foot, you name it. So we go over to the Faceposer. Now the Faceposer is quite a complicated thing if you see all of these settings on your first or your second ever try when it comes to posing. And you will likely just use the presets. Obviously, I am a poser myself, so I do not necessarily bother doing more custom ones or saving them even up if I ever do them. Most of them I just take upon from here and just basically edit them once I have the occurrence. Well, let's say he is rather annoyed that individual 1 is watching what he wants to watch, but individual 2 doesn't want to watch what individual 1 wants to watch. As for the presets, I nearly forgot about that. I horribly apologize. If you do not have the quite annoyed face posing, here's the list if you want to take it over. Now, obviously, you can also increase the flex scale. The flex scale essentially increases everything to a particular multiplier. But for the sake of this video, we will only use presets. Make him rather annoyed. So he's annoyed that he can't watch what he can't watch what he wants to watch, but he watches what he wants to watch. A very City 17-ish problem that occurs. So again, we will be using a preset for him being happy. Now within those easy presets, you can simply just remove something if you don't want them. You can also edit it yourself by decreasing or increasing their multipliers. Next up, obviously, if you want, which I only will do for individual 1, if you want to use a custom one and basically make it yourself, you need to understand the face positionings of their flexes. I just call them now. Well, let's set everything back to default. And let's say he simply smirks about his anger. Das hier would name in TF2 Schadenfreude. Increase the eye. Keep in mind that if you pose one thing and it doesn't work at some point anymore, that you will have that you're basically dealing within a little bit of a colossal. Here for instance, you don't see anything happening. So we set everything back to 0, as it doesn't change anything on the entire pose itself. You can also lower the eye and raise the eye in terms of, hey, you got my attention. Obviously, if you have started something, don't necessarily dope it up. Take your time with everything that you basically do within the entire pose. My recommendation, sometimes you can use the smile, sometimes I recommend highly for off from it. However, it also works in some scenarios. As for the face posing, obviously the eyeballs need to be not changed, or the pupil positions need to be not changed within the scenario. Let's start up with the finger posing. Now the finger posing is very easy, yet also very difficult for beginners. So we were taking our time with it. As for the layout, yes, I am currently using a different version of the hand posing frame, as I cannot be bothered with dealing with new stuff after we have been basically using this kind of a template for years. And remember, even if you basically decide to post something a little bit different, you can always do it, as Garry's mod is is basically never running out of limitations when it comes to what's posing. Obviously, as well, I like saying obviously and basically today, you can also restrict or non-restrict the access of the bone points of the fingers, which obviously, again, can be ticked off and ticked on. For example, as we can see, the current finger, the pinky small finger, does not necessarily reach, but this leads us to the previous problem of it doesn't really concern us. As for the other hand, after a bit of time of basically posing enough, you won't even be looking on the screen anymore. My recommendation when it comes to finger posing is to get off from the finger posing image right away and only look at it if you select a certain bone or finger. Because by then you can really just better adjust what kind of finger needs to be moved, where it needs to be moved, and so on. If you look on the thumbnail, or not on the thumbnail but on the image, you will always look on the points. And my mouse doesn't want to do what I want it to do. Some models do have sometimes the scenario where finger is rather pointy. What I recommend to do there is just cut it out in terms of put it inside the clothing, put it inside the prop, so it cannot be seen necessarily. So for individual number 2, who looks rather annoyed, this hand doesn't even require a pose, as you can see on the image right here. The only thing that requires a pose is the obvious within the water bottle. Now, in some scenarios, let's say for example, you want to take this hand, basically put it on the cap while he's holding also the bottle. You can do it obviously, but for the sake of this video, we just leave the hand there. Now keep in mind, as I always say, whatever isn't in the camera, nobody needs to know, as it doesn't really matter anyway. Because at the end of the day, no one can say that a finger was somewhere where it shouldn't have been. See this example. As long as the entire hand is basically still exposed, nothing needs to be worried about. And that's basically it for the pose. Next up, we want to spawn in the lights, as the lights do make the scene and the scene makes the light. So naturally, when watching TV, you have light. It emits light automatically. Now I do not know for your circumstances if you watch if you watch TV, but for myself, I always leave the lamp off or the lights off when I'm watching TV to have the maximum amount of focusation. So we will be going to our entities and we go over to render. I will also leave therefore a link down in the description where you can just subscribe to it, to the add-on, and you just have it. We start off very easy by spawning in a normal light, a cheap light. After spawning in a cheap light, we can turn off matte for bright. Once turning off matte for bright, you will see scenes that look rather bright. All you have to do is simply push them. Give them any kind of interaction. Simply push yourself into them and it should be fixed. This chair we do not need. And the lighting is basically fixed. We start off easy by holding our C button. Now for other users it might be another button. I do not know your options. Simply head over to your options by pressing escape, options and view what you basically have set up there. Right click on the certain entity that you want to edit and edit properties. By then you have a large variety of what you can do. Change the coloring, change the brightness, change the size, keep in mind that the size does not necessarily affect the pose. As shown in this little area, you can see that the circle of the size keeps on decreasing and increasing the more I decrease and increase the size. On top of that, you can also disable light world, as well as light models. You can draw or hide the sprite and simply have it in the middle of the scene. Now that we have that established, we want to change the color. Let's go with a typical cyan. A very natural color, nothing too heartbreaking. Now, depending on the scenario of your pose, the lighting might be a bit interrupted. You can also, as shown before, increase the brightness or decrease the brightness if you please. And I forgot to touch the remote control. And there you basically have it. There's your artwork. Very simple, straightforward. Everything is basically raw footage, so you have an amazing template to basically go for. Additionally, you can also put more props to the scene. Let's say you want to give one person a coffee cup. Obviously, you want to expose what's written on the coffee cup. If you don't want, simply rotate the prop. Another thing that you can obviously add is even more decoration. The Garry Smart Workshop is filled with amazing props, but I'm using only basic material, besides for the individuals. Well, let's say he got his paycheck, he's drinking beer. Doesn't really matter now what kind of decoration you put on, as that is entirely up to you, obviously, and you name it. And there we go. Obviously, depending on the kind of scenario that you want to do or that you want to pose, everything will be different. I just did a main construction within 2 models and a few props, which can be already resulted as a good artwork. However, the more you basically put in, the more you have to be careful about of what you expose, how you do it, how not to forget finger posing, face posing, eye posing. It tends to happen. It happened to me. Probably also happened to others. Um, but yeah. If you like this video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe for further more content, and also hit the little bell icon so you get notifications the next time I will upload a video. Until then, our student and I will be going over what we learned today, shall we? Alright, hope you all enjoyed.